for you, but my hair's been under a hat for like all day, and I was doing a
cut what I had left.
Great job.
For this specifically today.
Oh, jeez.
All right, we're live.
We're super polished here.
Yeah.
Oh, we got somebody in there. Todd, what's up?
Oh, I
Marlins
appreciate
the
that,
goat.
Johnny. Appreciate that.
Pacific Standard Eastern. We missed it. No, Jim, we're right on time. 6:37.
We're only 8 minutes late. We're 8
good.
minutes late. That's better than previous weeks, I would think.
I know. I just made a promise to the people all year. I'm like, we're gonna start 6:30 every time, but then I was actually at fault for this one because we were talking.
I think.
But what's going on,
we were all at
everybody?
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We have an awesome guest in here tonight. I'm excited to bring him in. It's going to be a really, really fun conversation. Ain't that right?
That's right. Absolutely.
But before we get started, huge shout out to Stevens Marine. With these live feeds, everything we do here every week would not be possible without them. So shout out to Stevens Marine for sponsoring the live feed. Any of your guys' boat needs, if you guys, now's the time, guys. Get your boats modified, improvements in the wintertime when we're not in our boats constantly chasing salmon. This is usually the time of year I get it down there, and I'm going to take it in next week because I got some other little cool things I want to do to it, and I'm going to have Stevens knock it out.
Boat project season for sure.
Yeah. I got that. Did you see Fish Fighter launched a net holder that mounts to the back of the boat, so your nets are like always right there by your motors? It's epic.
Not the ones they've already had?
No, these are new. They just came out with them. I saw them at Chuck when I fished with Chuck during August. They're sweet, and you can adjust the angles on them. It's really slick.
Well, I like that because the problem with the straight up and down ones, it just drips on your cowling and drips on you.
No, you can do
Yeah,
like
so
3 or
depends.
4 different angles. It's really sick. Anyway, I'm getting one of those. I'm putting one of those on my boat.
Shocker. Shock. What's going on? What's up, Cody,
Anything.
Sean, Ben? What's up, gents? Yes, Ben, we have rain. Absolutely, we do have rain, guys. Finally, I just saw that some of the situations out there have really been cruddy for some of them late run coho returning. So hopefully this is going to be something that's going to get these fish going, and I hope they're there. Did see some counts at Bonneville that looked a little more promising.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was 60, 80 fish a day, and yesterday was 465 above Bonneville for coho numbers out of nowhere. So maybe the fish felt the rain.
Maybe they're coming.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, hopefully some good things to come there, guys. I did hear of, actually saw the picture of it, of an early winter steelhead caught and killed by a local guide.
I mean, it's that time.
It is that time. Which
It's
is pretty
that time.
crazy,
They're gonna
pretty
start
cool.
showing up.
Hayden's already gone. He's going to be sick now the next
Yeah.
2 weeks trying to go catch that one's twin. He said there was another one with it. You going to go get him? Maybe. So
For all we know, he's already caught one.
Oh, of course. Yeah, see, I stepped in it.
All right, guys, let's get a prize pack going before we get too many. We already got over 300 people in here, so if you guys want an opportunity to win a filet-away fish mat, do me a huge favor, guys. Like I said, tonight is going to be an awesome discussion. You are really going to want to be in this one, so let's get a bunch more people in here. Thumbs up the video, share it out there, drop some comments. Let us know where everyone's tuning in from. We always like to see all the different places around the U.S. and honestly the world that you guys are tuning in from. So if you want an opportunity to win the filet-away mat, do those 3 things, and we'll randomly select some from the comments.
Does lots of rain mess up the crabbing successes? It does in some of the smaller bays. Yeah, it can freshwater flush them out. But I think right now, as it stands, especially for the weekend, it's just kind of now happening, so I think we'll be good. We got CeeLo, Washington. Annie says, yes, please. Beaverton, Vancouver, Troutdale, Sheridan, Oregon. Mike's, the Madro Bridge. There you go.
Nice.
Corvallis, Yakima, a lot of local. Boardman, Oregon. I was just up there, George. Heck yeah.
Sats up. I keep getting invited to the Sats. Have you ever fished that?
I never have.
Might have
I
to go out
probably
there.
should give it a try.
What's up, Heath?
Forest Grove, Lake Chelan. We have like nobody shooting in from the Midwest or Florida. Come on.
Wenatchee, the Dalles,
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
That
There you
works.
go.
Billings. Wenatchee. Florida. Oh, I'd like to
Oh,
see
how does he
Florida.
know? How does Jeremy know?
What did he say? I didn't see
He
it.
says, be nice to Jeff. He's a good guy.
Oh, well, probably I made the post on.
Oh, that's
Florida.
right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's right.
Yes, sir. Yeah, guys, special guest tonight. We just got done doing a podcast. If you guys aren't familiar with those, it's on Spotify, Apple Play, Addicted Fishing, a few other places.
Everywhere.
Podbean,
Anywhere where you can get podcasts, you can find
got
ours.
that
Just
doing
type
that.
Addicted Fishing Podcast.
Granite Bay, Marlin's the Goat, Fall City, Prosser. Wow. Okay, everyone's firing up.
All over the place.
Getting closer to 400, guys. Be sure to share this out to the group. Share this out to your friends. we'll give everybody another minute. Couple quick.
Yeah, a couple quick announcements, guys. We will be at Sportco tomorrow. Sportco in Fife, Washington from 6 to 9 p.m. for the 4th annual Addicted Bash. If you guys haven't been to these events, they are an absolute blast. We are just throwing out tons of prizes. Cameron's giving fishing seminars. We have Nick, Big Dave there, Jordan doing a seminar. It's a really, really good time, guys. We have free gifts for the first 75 people that show up. Bring your kids. If you guys have been to any of these in the past, you guys know that I love to really hook up the kids with stuff. So they will be gifts for all the kids that show up, and we will make it fun for the kids to be there. So bring all your kids. It's going to be a really, really good time. Sportco in Fife tomorrow from 6 to 9. I'm excited. The bashes have been really fun this year. Huge turnouts.
They've been good.
Yeah.
We've had over 350 people at the Fisherman's one, and we're going to expect probably more there.
I hope. I was on the outdoor line on Saturday on the radio show talking about it. So, yeah. Hopefully we get a good turnout. I'm excited.
155
to meet all you
miles,
guys.
still debating. I think we're going to go a little less than that, so you better be there.
And don't forget, the first person that shows up and the person that drives from the furthest always gets a special little prize. So last time someone showed up at 10:30 and sat there till 6, which is crazy.
It's a good prize. It ain't that good. It's a cool prize though. Yes, get those kids addicted. That's right. We always got the free goodies for them. It's always a good.
It was awesome. I got a lot of messages from parents that were like, "Thank you so much for making it special for the kids. We'll come to every bash going forward." So,
yep, good time. Signing hats and all that good stuff for them. It's a good time.
We make it fun for you. The other announcement, guys, is right now on our website is our Halloween sale. So yesterday we launched our Halloween sale on our website. It's free shipping in the entire world. Doesn't matter if you're in Canada, doesn't matter where you're at, free shipping for 2 days only. The sale is actually going to end tonight at midnight. So if you've been thinking about getting stuff on the website, or if you're annoyed because shipping was too much because you live across the country, now's the time. Or Alaska, some of those guys that live in Alaska, shipping can cost a ton. So get your stuff on the website. Like I said, tonight at midnight's when it's going to end. You just use the code ships free. I don't know. If you go to the website, it's on the banner on the...
You can't miss it.
Yeah.
You can't miss it. You can't miss it.
Free shipping on the website. Check it out, guys.
Yes. Donald, that's a good idea. That will probably be the follow-up because we already have over 400 of you guys tuned in, and we're not even getting started yet. A couple other things. Are you going to have some of the drop merch for sale at the bash? I saw that question twice at the bash. I know you're going to have some apparel.
There will be some of it there. There will be drop merch there. There will also be stuff that you've never seen before, exclusively made for the Sportco Bash. So if you want some merch, we're going to have some cool stuff there.
Oh, that's news to me.
Yeah.
I'm always last to know, though. I'm not important enough anymore. You know, you got to have the boys.
It's not that he's not important enough. It's that he's too busy.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
What was the carryover from last week? Wasn't it 450 for the? Yeah. So.
Yep. I think we need to make it more now, though. How many more are watching?
I think 450 is good.
What do we got right now?
Over 400.
Yeah, we already got over 400. So, guys, the boys over at North Fork Lures sent us this awesome prize pack loaded to the brim with spinners. If we get over 450 people in here, we're going to be choosing someone to win this. So you guys can make it happen. All you got to do is comment, thumbs up, share it out there. The more you guys engage and get this live feed out here, the more people will get in here. So keep doing it, and hopefully we'll give away these spinners tonight. If not, I'm going to use them this winter.
This weekend. Yeah. And yeah, Todd, no, I know we didn't get to go Monday. There was some fish around, but not enough to make it worthwhile. Trust me, it would have been a big rant all day. But the rain's coming. A lot of cool stuff. Another thing they just announced: sturgeon seasons. They got on it quick this year.
I saw that. Sharon's like, they're announcing a keeper sturgeon season, and I had totally forgot about like the Bonneville one, and I'm like, no, they're not.
Yeah.
I'm like, I freaked out. I'm like, where is it?
Yeah.
And then she told me Bonneville, and I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, they got on
I was
it
hoping
early.
it was downriver.
I remember when they went to the Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. They only did it like 2 weeks ahead of time when they did it last year. Yeah, last year. So. They got that out nice and early. It is set starting January 1 through February 7th. Monday, Wednesday, Saturdays in the Bonneville and the Dallas pools. 7 days a week in the John Day pool. Until quota is caught.
With 14 feet of snow.
You think that's going to happen, huh?
I don't know.
It happened 2 years ago, 30 inches overnight. It was awesome. We were there. Nobody else was there, though.
It's because you were staying up
Bunch
there.
of chickens. It was awesome.
Even me and Lonnie planned to go, and we were like, nah, we're not driving up there.
It was the craziest experience because we ran our boat down to like where we went fishing. They had 84 closed. They had 14 closed. They had the railroads closed, and we were sitting out there in a boat by ourselves, and the gorge was quiet. and it was
That's cool.
snow falling, and you'll never get to see that the rest of your life.
No,
it'll
that's
never
right.
happen again
Yeah.
because it was like, who else is? Well, we were at the hotel, so and the boat was launched.
Clint, let's pick the first winner, and then we'll bring our guest in. There it is. Dan Veland. Dan Veland, shoot us an email to orders@addicted.fishing. Make sure you include your name, your address. Let us know that you won the filet fish mat. We'll get it out to you. And thanks to everyone that shares and comments.
Montana. I don't need an excuse to go to Montana next year.
No, let's
About
do it.
November.
Oh, you doing that?
If we draw, we won't, because I never draw anything. I'm the unluckiest son of a gun in the world. Got like 14 cow points. Still waiting.
Maybe we should ask our guest what's going on with that.
Yeah, I'm sure he's got all the answers. He's like, oh, he's going.
He's going, here we go.
All right, guys, let's bring in our guest.
Awesome. I'll get this to Clint, and then I'll have you jump
Yes,
in the middle
sir.
there,
Hop
Jeff.
on in the middle. Man in the middle here. All right. Yes, sir. All right, guys, we got Captain Jeff Wickersham from Region 5 Enforcement Program.
Yeah, thanks for
tuning
having
in tonight. Did an awesome
Yeah, appreciate you coming in, man.
podcast.
Thank you.
And you know, guys, it's part of fishing in the Northwest, right? I mean, we got to follow the rules, we got to follow the regulations. I offered Jeff the opportunity to come in and kind of help out the public, help out you guys, answer some what ifs. But a couple ground rules just for tonight. You know, I made a post on the Addicted Forum yesterday, and just basically said, hey, you know, what do you guys want to talk about? We got some good topics, but keep in mind, like, you are from the enforcement program. You enforce the laws that are on the books that are kind of set by the statewide, you know, managers and people, and like, so you aren't in charge of a lot of these things like people were wanting us to ask about. For instance, like shooting sea lions, like, or just I'm just throwing.
I
out
mean, he
some-
could speak
well,
on that.
Well, yeah, probably don't do it.
do that.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, a lot of people had this like, oh, well, ask him about sea lions, ask him about some of these other things. Like, okay, well, that's not your job, right? That is not your scope of work. So
No. I'm lucky enough to have conversations with the people that are making those decisions, but at times I'm glad I'm not in their shoes, because I know that can be really hot, and I have a lot of respect for them because they have to make hard choices at times. And so, yeah, let's keep it professional. I know I will, but we're also going to have a little fun.
yes, sir. Everyone says hello, Jeff. I already see some comments on barbs, all that good stuff. What's that? What is? See, like asking him what is their plan about the sea lions? Tell, like, I don't think you're really. I mean, that's
Yeah, guys,
that's
we
a
gotta
fish
we gotta
program.
keep the
That's-
question specifically to what
yeah.
he would be enforcing that's already in the rule books.
And maybe I need to make the advisement avoid where prohibited, the opinions of Jeff Wickersham or his alone. I mean, I could make all
Yeah,
those things.
we have to
tonight,
say
but-
those statements too. We're like, just because we said the regulations, we're still going to ask you to go check on that. And Wagyu, we're going to ask that question, of course.
Rude Crude says, pinching my barbs right now. Well, good job for you, Rude.
Yeah, Jeff, I agree. Jeff is a good name. Thank you for that.
Don't think his mic is working. Let's see the box. Just real quick.
No,
the
it
box
might be
is
too
very-
far down.
it's
Clint,
working.
you want to
Oh,
adjust
okay.
him,
Is it
Clint?
good work?
I want to turn him up there.
Let's get our producer in here. He'll get it fixed for you guys.
All right. Just fell down a little.
Yep, I got it.
Yeah.
Get that, honestly.
Maybe I can.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, his mic is too quiet. I think we got her now down. What is the best way to read and find out about the actual rate check? We'll get on to that first.
Don't get weirded out here.
No, you're all good.
I'm going to switch you to this side so then it's not covered up by your collar.
Bring it.
There we
Perfect.
go. You hear him now, guys? You guys everyone hear him now? Excellent. Clint, exactly. Holy crap, questions are flowing in. First off,
Quickly, before you do that, there's going to be a ton of questions in this feed, guys, and there's a good chance we're going to miss them, so do not be afraid to get your questions commented multiple times just in case we miss them. Cam's going to get a piece of paper, though, I think, and write down some good ones that he sees as they're coming in. But don't be afraid to just keep commenting if your question's not getting answered. Don't spam it. But if for some reason we miss your question, please re-comment them. We want to try to get as many answers as possible.
and make sure that you're watching live. Make sure that little live button is highlighted red on the YouTube channel before, because some guys are still telling us where they're tuning in from. I know they're just kind of catching up late. Captain Wickersham, how long have you been in this area? Tell us a little about yourself. Introduce yourself to the guests
so
here.
Jeff Wickersham, I actually grew up here in Ridgefield, just down the street from the fairgrounds down here at 179th Street.
Some big bucks on 179th Street.
Not when I was growing up, there weren't. There are now, though, apparently. Got this job right out of college, went down to the coast, a little town called Raymond, down in Pacific County. Was there for a number of years. My wife and I moved there And then got the chance to come back to kind of this area as a sergeant in 2011. They opened a position in Stevenson for the Columbia Gorge Detachment. Took that, worked with some really good folks, some really good officers. Some of them were retired, some of them were still there. And it exposed me to a lot of the issues along the Columbia that I hadn't really seen working the coast in 𝗛𝗣𝗥𝗏 Bay. So that was 2011. Fast forward to 2016, the captain here retired and took off. Got an opportunity for that, promoted to captain, and still living up in Stevenson, commuting in here to Ridgefield quite a bit. And I've got 3 detachments that work for me here, really dedicated officers. So pretty excited. I feel like this is the best region in the state. We've got everything you could ever want for outdoor recreation. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree.
And I'm not trying to ignore. I wasn't ignoring you, but I'm already seeing like really great topics. And the one thing that you wanted to touch on, recruitment.
Yeah. So there are a ton of people on this call from looks like all over the United States even. Department of Fish and Wildlife Police, we are recruiting. We are looking for a few good officers to come in and take on the ranks of Fish and Wildlife. We have openings all over the state. We have lots of openings here in Region 5. All of our information is on our website, WDFW.𝗲𝗏.gov. If you go in there, you'll find a link to WDFW Police and how to be a Fish and Wildlife officer. If you're at all interested in this, there's different requirements. If you have military, if you have college, if you're another law enforcement officer from another agency that's accredited throughout the state of Washington or even nationwide. So go there if you're interested. This, I think, is the best job in the world. There's a promotional video you might see, I'm on it, but I say in there that we really have the choice of going left or right out of our driveway every day. And when you're an officer, except for training days and a few things when the sergeant or the captain says, I want you to do this, you have that opportunity. It is amazing. So I love this
There's a lot of grounds to run out here.
That's right. Yep.
A lot of great stuff to check out in the state of Washington. Very cool.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of questions there. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Is there a max age?
There is not a max age. You do, if you've never been through the police academy, you do have to pass the Criminal Justice Training Commission's basic law enforcement academy. It's a number of hours. They have physical requirements to get in. We have a whole testing process. If you're interested, take a look at our webpage. It'll tell you everything you need to know. And if you want to apply, we're looking for you. So if you'd like to do it, give it a shot, put your name in the hat, and let's see how you do.
There you go. Perfect. I'm in the Marine Reserves. Yeah, I mean, Connor, like all that stuff's going to be on there. Yep, check it out there.
Yep.
So first things first, guys, because we might as well just knock it out because I've seen this probably 8 times already. I have already seen some really good questions that we're going to get to, but let's just tackle like misclips because it was one of the most popular ones on the comment thread. I've already seen it like 10 times, and so they're going to hear the definition of misclips from the state of Washington, and pretty much that it's really.
Yeah, so there is a definition about what a healed scar or an adipose fin clip is for a hatchery fish, and it is that there is a healed scar at the point where the adipose fin, or if it's a fish where you could have a ventral fin clip, that's fully healed. Now the question comes in like, we need to distinguish here between Oregon and Washington. Oregon actually has a rule about this. They kind of delineate what that is. So we're just going to stick to Washington for this. But Washington, when our officers go out and they find somebody that has a fish that has a misclip, we're going to use some common sense about looking at whether or not that is a misclip or whether it's actually a wild fish or a fish with an intact adipose fin. Every fish is going to be different. Sometimes the fin clip is so bad that it looks like the entire adipose fin is there. My recommendation on that, if you're not sure, toss it back. That's honestly what I'm going to say for all this. But if you find the adipose fin that's just a thin little sliver of the adipose fin left, but it's got that nice straight line on it, you can tell that it was a cut, and it's got a healed scar, we're going to use a lot of discretion on individuals that are looking at that. But if we go out and we find the healed scar is nothing but a bunch of blood because somebody cut the adipose fin off and they're trying to pass, that's not a healed scar, so that's probably not going to be a great day for the angler. You're definitely not going to be keeping the fish. And yeah,
the blood's still trickling off, and it's kind of a no-no.
Blood's still coming off, and you know, the level of education we're going to give on that one is probably going to result in some paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So pretty much, guys, it's up to their discretion. Like, and the reality is like and the reason why we're getting the question from the Washington side is because the Oregon side does have the little printout with the 8 boxes in it. But the reality is you guys know what a misclip is. And if you don't know what a misclip is, throw it back.
Well, and the fact is, Oregon's rule, I've seen that publication you're talking about. It's a great guide. And if somebody were to follow that, I've looked at it, and I know we've talked to anglers about it. If somebody follows that, it's not going to lead you the wrong way.
No, it's pretty sound, honestly.
It really is pretty good. I guess I'll leave you with this. When I go out fishing on my own, as a fish and wildlife officer, I need to be above reproach. I need to be making sure that I'm holding myself to the accountability I would expect of anybody else, and then probably a little more. Most of the time I have my kids with me, and I want to show them how to be legal, how to be legitimate sportsmen and sportswomen when they're in the field. I've had to toss a few fish back that were probably something another angler would have kept, but I didn't feel comfortable with it. And my son in particular is like, "Dad, why'd you throw that back?" It's like, because it was the right thing to do. So that's what I live by. Yep.
For sure. You know what? I've already seen this question a couple of times too, and it kind of, that's good. Let's do that one there. Like, so, guy does snag, clips a fish, you confiscate it. What happens to it?
So it depends on where we are. There are some places that will take those fish. So we try to donate them to charitable causes. I won't get into the names of the places we take them.
Fair.
We'll try to do that. Sometimes even if it's a snagged fish, but it was otherwise lawful, maybe we'll find we have different options of returning it to the environment. I won't say there's not an occasion where maybe it hasn't wound up with a kid who was fishing someplace and they didn't have any luck at the end of the day. But most of the time, we're going to try to get it to that charitable organization. There are times where it's the end of the night and we have nothing to do with them. Nutrient enhancement has a place as well.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it because this was many, many years ago, but my dad actually got a spiked deer in that situation, driving out of the woods at night. Didn't have a deer, but
Yep.
somebody somewhere in some county found a guy that didn't tag one and tried to sneak one out, and they didn't want to deal with it. My dad's a terrible hunter, so you got to spike. It was like 15 years ago.
The last thing we want to do
waste
is let it go to waste, because I mean that's
Fair.
something we charge other anglers with if they waste a fish, if they waste a deer. But there are times where we just have nothing that we can do with those fish, and there are certain rules, like at the major food banks. Some of them won't take it because it doesn't meet USDA inspection requirements, and that's something new in the last 4 or 5 years. So sometimes it's hard to get to do something other than put them back in the environment.
I know on the biology side of the nursing homes and stuff like that, some of the fish that would end up dying, like in some of the operations they were doing where they were tangle netting or doing some study, would end up there. So like, I mean, for the most part, guys, they're not just all going to waste. They're going to do what they can for sure.
Yep.
I saw another, go scroll up just real briefly because I got this one kind of tied onto it. Keep going. Sorry, I lost it. Nope, down. Sorry.
Which one are you looking for? What was it? What was it about?
Wasn't the twitching question, was it?
No, but we can go to that one. That was on the list. So I did see a comment that basically said that all we're seeing is snagging done to twitching. You guys, we're gonna have some fun with Jeff today too. I got some other good questions. Yeah. I knew the second we would dive into this, it was just gonna be, here comes the what ifs, and I warned him.
Yep.
But I saw the comment, basically, when is twitching going to be banned? There's some rivers in South and West just blatant snagging at this point, shaking my head.
Yeah. So we had this discussion earlier during the actual podcast, and with every rule that we put in place, it takes a few years. There's this lag time, and then we see individuals being able to adapt to the new rule and have a new method to use the gear in a way that we didn't think it was going to be used. So the anti-snag rule, when that first came into effect, it was because people had weight right on the hook or below it, and there was snagging going on. So they changed this rule. Oh, somebody will never exploit this one. And what do we wind up with? 8-foot leaders and weight all the way down, and leaders that slide, all this different stuff, or weight that slides on the leader. We didn't expect that when that rule came out. So then you get like stationary gear restrictions, and the anti-snag rule also has a trolling thing where if it doesn't float in calm water and it sinks, it has to be a single point hook, but if it floats, it could be a treble hook. All this different stuff that's going on. I don't think there are certain individuals that will exploit the rules and take advantage of them. I don't think that twitching is the problem. It's individuals that are using the idea of what a twitching jig is, or just a regular jig, and they're doing it backwards. For example, when I learned how to jig, I knew that it was a quick drop and then a slow rise. Well, what I see in the field is absolutely the opposite. When somebody's snagging, it's a slow drop and then it's an absolute rip on the backhand. That's not the way that gear is intended to be used.
Yeah.
And when it becomes robotic, when you see people foul hooking fish time after time after time, I don't consider myself to be a good angler by any means. Definitely not to the standards of you gentlemen here. But I think we could all agree that nobody's lucky enough to get a bite every single cast. So that's one of the arguments we get.
The old
is that,
courtesy at the end of the journey.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought I felt a bite. Well,
Yeah.
the fact is, when we go out and contact people on this, it is not typically our first time looking at somebody. If we spend a lot of time watching, seeing what anglers are doing, seeing what the public's doing, to see where maybe we should focus our attention. And when we pounce, it's with reason and it's with intent.
That makes sense.
You're
Well, I
not
wanna-
fooling anybody.
I want to elaborate quickly on that because one of the things I've heard him say throughout the podcast and throughout this that I really like that he's speaking like that is these guys aren't in the business of like ruining fishing for the people that are doing it right. And if you start doing these blanket rule changes like eliminating twitching, all the people that are actually lawfully doing it then no longer get to do that. And so instead, these guys use their best judgment to try to identify the people that are snagging and punish the people that are doing it wrong versus punishing everyone.
Yeah. And a number of us, we're anglers, we're hunters, we do this too. We recognize that nobody's going to be perfect and everybody makes mistakes. I have my examples we could go through if we really wanted to. Let's not. But I have them too.
So do we.
I have them too. And the fact is that experience lets us know, it helps us be more human when we're contacting people in the field when there's been a mistake. And really it comes down to that honesty. If we go out and somebody's like, yeah, this is what I did, this is what I got, and they're upfront with us, that contact's going to go a lot better than if we've spent some time watching somebody and we go up and we get lied to right off the bat. That typically starts to limit our options in terms of, well, maybe a warning was going to be given. Well, maybe now it's a criminal ticket that's going to be issued for the violation we have at hand. Oh, you hit a fish that we didn't actually see earlier. Oh, you clipped the fin off. It just sort of compounds and snowballs, and that initial angling trip where maybe you didn't feel like it was a great day, it's now become a really bad day.
Yeah.
I love the WDFW police blurbs on the Facebook because it's always like made contact, started questioning, then found out, like, and it just goes on and on and on. Like you said, guys, they kind of know what's up. We have almost 600 of you guys tuning in so far tonight, so that's really cool. We definitely gave away the prize pack, so I think Captain Wickersham here's a hit, guys, so far. But do you want to give that away now, or do you want to wait just a few
let's
minutes?
make 'em wait.
So that's the next question I wanted to go to for Shane, because now we're going to play the what ifs. If you pinch a barb and hook and it breaks,
All right, perfect question.
Yeah.
This has happened to me as
barbless
well.
hooks,
Yep.
real fast.
Yes.
Barbless hooks are required in some of our fisheries, guys. For you guys not tuning in from the Northwest, and there's some rivers that you can literally fish across the boundary line and fish barbs, and then when you rotate to other areas, it's barbless. So like this, the barbless thing's kind of a big deal to the Northwest, guys.
Yep. Yeah. So a lot of really cool stories about how enforcement handles barbed hooks. Right to the point on this one. If you pinch your barb and it breaks off, and it's right at the shaft of the hook, and everything's there, that happens. We're not expecting people to file that off. If you ran your finger across it, is it going to impinge your finger? Probably not. That's not what we're looking for. When we're dealing with barbed hooks, it's people that haven't even tried to pinch it down, and some people legitimately forget. I've been in a situation before where I've changed out hooks and thrown it out, and I pull it back in like, oh my gosh, I didn't pinch that barb down. So again, human, we give a lot of discretion on this, but if we come up to a boat and absolutely everything is not barbed, or absolutely everything is barbed on the Columbia, that's a little different than going through an entire boat and finding on a treble hook maybe one barb on the entire boat, or there's just one barb on it. So there's also the myth of the cotton ball or taking a pair of pantyhose or something else, and if anything catches, we're writing a ticket. I just want to tell all the viewers on here tonight that's not true. Again, this is going to be officer discretion, and we want to take a human approach to it, but also if it's obvious somebody didn't even take a good opportunity to pinch that down, we'll take appropriate action.
Could that be because there's other enforcement agencies enforcing the barbless law? And it just dawned on me, like, so, you know, your detachment's not doing that, or at least, like you said, everything you just explained, but could potentially like an OSP or a local sheriff or somebody else maybe be doing that?
You know, Is it possible? I mean, we can't rule anything.
You can't
out,
speak
but
for everybody,
I can't
I
speak
get
for
it,
everybody,
yeah.
but we have a really good relationship with Oregon State Police. In fact, we work on the same patrol vessels a lot, and
Yep.
we communicate because a lot of the people from Washington go to Oregon, Oregon to Washington, and vice versa. And so oftentimes we'll try to leverage our patrols by having a trooper on board the boat with us or on with them so that we can deal with some of those nuances. I've never seen a difference in the discretion on that. Maybe the threshold for writing a ticket's a little bit lower. Maybe instead of where we'd give a warning, maybe an infraction would be issued, or vice versa. We have some officers that are a little bit more stringent on that than others. But I've never seen anybody just take a hard line on it and say, if there's anything, I'm writing a ticket. And
Someone
yeah.
made the comment, they're like, it'd be safe to say if you just made it 100% barbless, you wouldn't get a ticket. Like, oh yeah, that's kind of the idea, for sure. For sure.
So I did see something. Could you go up a little bit? There was a comment there about, I've seen some things about authority and everything. Just so everybody knows, Washington State Fish and Wildlife Police, we are general authority police officers. We hold the same commission as a state trooper, a county deputy, a city police officer. We have statewide jurisdiction. We also have some authority federally through National Marine Fisheries Service, NOAA, and then U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Yeah, birds and stuff. Yeah.
Birds. But more than that, like there's just certain things like Lacey Act. We can go out and actually investigate some of that stuff and hand it off to the feds for charging. So we have a lot of authority. Sheriffs and police officers here in the state of Washington, they have the same authority as us to inspect licenses and do this work. A state trooper does.
Me and Cam got checked one time by a state trooper on our way back from a river. Remember?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't know what a coho was.
Yeah. He pulled us out. He didn't pull us. He pulled
me
Marlon over for a tail light out, maybe going a little quick, and saw the coho sitting in the back of the truck. He's like, pinks? We're like, no, coho. Here's our licenses.
Yep.
So he did check them, but
Yeah, so there's
Yeah.
a lot. There's a lot of law enforcement that could be out there that could be working this, and sometimes they don't know all the rules. And we try to reach out to a lot of agencies and give training, so at least they know to make the call if they see something. But it doesn't mean that when you're out on the water, you don't get contacted by Clark County Sheriff's Office here in Clark County when you're on Merwin Lake during the summer. Maybe they're doing boat safety checks. Maybe they'll do some other inspections along the way. So there's a lot of people that could be looking at you and seeing stuff. Again, just be honest about what's going on. A lot of people don't understand fishing that are outside of Fish and Wildlife or Oregon State Police. And so just bear with us, but we're all out there trying to provide that service to you.
administrative note, that little favorite thing that you're playing with is the bomb.
Yeah, so I'm trying.
That is cool. Like, how long has that been there?
Forever.
Because that is really good. So we've got, yeah, that's really good. Because even some that I missed.
Can I hit the one at the bottom there?
You can hit whatever one you
right.
want. Any
So
updates on the
Ryan,
any updates on the digital license, digital reporting changeover?
Yeah, so the Department of Fish and Wildlife is working through digital licensing right now. We've had to continue to push back the go live date. I'm on the project team that meets. We have different staff from across the state that are working on this, working on rules. We have the administrative code changes in place that would be needed to implement this. Right now, we're looking at sometime like next summer at this point and before it's implemented. But what it will allow people to do is a digital catch record card, digital tags, digital license. And then there's also some improvements to the Fish Washington app that are going to happen as well that are going to make it.
I got it, Clint. Okay. I got it. I'm watching him, so I'll see him.
Yeah.
Don't distract us. I got it.
Anyway, there's just going to be a lot of opportunity for that, and a really good opportunity for especially anglers to have a one-stop shop for catch record card regulations and everything they're going to need to stay legit in the field and have up-to-date information on what's open and what's closed. So a lot of good stuff coming. I think it's
Yeah.
going to be great. I intend
They need
to convert over to that as soon as it's in place too.
Yeah, no, I mean, some of the other states, it's been a lifesaver. Definitely makes the jobs a little bit easy. Speaking of other states, yeah, so seeing this one too, like limited 2 states and San Diego. And what's funny is I get asked this a lot as a guide because you go, I'm just going to throw out, you go to a Washington tributary and they catch 2 salmon and now they have an Oregon license and they're going to return home and they want to go fishing on their own.
Yep.
2 licenses, 2 states, 2 separate waters.
Yeah, so in the concurrent waters of the Columbia, it's actually in both of our regulation pamphlets that regardless of the number of having 1 or 2 licenses, you get 1 daily limit.
Yep.
So that concurrent water is that. Now the question gets into a little bit, and I won't get into too much the what if, but What if you want to go fish on a tributary? Well, if you have a Washington license and you retained your adult limit for the day, you're done fishing for salmon for the day. So even if you wanted to go into a tributary and you were on the Columbia, you couldn't do that. Because, now if we follow that logic, because you can't have two limits on the Columbia if you have both states' licenses, you'd still not be able to go and fish for salmon on a trib, regardless of the fact that maybe you recorded it on your Oregon license. So it gets really complicated.
So when the Columbia is involved, then it's just going to fall back to whatever state you think you're going to go fishing to. And basically, a daily limit's a daily limit.
Really quickly, how you guys are handling that. I should have said this at the beginning before we got started. If you say anything disrespectful or that I think is disrespectful, I'm banning you. I'm not even gonna, I don't care if you've been watching our live feeds forever, I'm banning you. So let's just be nice, say respectful things. He's taken time out of his day. He's been working all day. He doesn't need to be in here. So just please, guys, let's just be respectful and keep it that way for this live feed. And you won't get banned. Thanks.
Perfect.
Thanks for that.
But if you're on the Washington tributary and you tag a Washington fish on a Washington license, and then can you go to Oregon with an Oregon license to an Oregon tributary? Columbia, not
I believe
included.
you. I believe you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I always felt like that daily limit will always apply to like anything in the Columbia, which is obviously like, for where we're located, guys, we're right on the border of Oregon and Washington. We fish on the Columbia River ton, big fishery.
Yeah, so I know what happens in terms of saying what Oregon's going to do about that. Can't give any legal advice, but if you have a Washington license and you fish on the Lewis, and then you go over to the Clackamas or the Willamette later in the afternoon and fish someplace else, I don't see how that's an issue because it's
Do you
now
really need
outside
that
of
many
our
fish?
license. Well, apparently some do.
Yeah. They just don't go to the other. They just do it on one spot, right?
Yeah.
According to some of those stories there too.
Thank you for the super chat, Danny. We will get to that question for sure. Pin that up, Clint.
Pin that up. So we have. Are there dress codes for wildlife enforcement officers? I had a boat inspection by a lady enforcement officer in uniform with pink hair and a pride pin on her jacket. Is that the norm?
So the norm or allowed. So do a lot of our officers dress like that? No. I happen to know that officer that this person's speaking of, highly professional, really cares about the job, and that is within our dress policy, our dress code that we have. A number of different agencies, it used to be like this. We were in wool pants, a Class A shirt all the time. If you think about pictures of Fish and Wildlife officers you saw 20 years ago, it was a really uncomfortable uniform. And as we've seen, we've begun recruiting a lot from the military. And one thing we've seen from the military is people, a tattoo is sort of a rite of passage, especially full sleeve tattoos, tattoos on necks. It's part of the culture and it's accepted. And we were finding that we were not able to hire those officers because they could not comply with our tattoo policy. They had to wear long sleeve shirts in the middle of the basin. In the summer, something had to give. So a number of agencies have begun relaxing the dress codes to allow somebody to have a tattoo that's showing, to have different colored hair. And so has it been a culture shift and it's caused some friction? Absolutely. Does it change the quality of the officers?
I was going to say the professionalism,
the professionalism is still there,
yes,
and and honestly,
already favored it for me.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's probably led to some additional engagement and some people where these officers have gone to other states. They've come up to us afterwards, said, the fact you guys allow that, that's amazing. I want to bring that up to my agents because I think that's a great show of your guys' service to your community and just the different people that we're seeing in the outdoors nowadays. So, allowed, and if people want to do it, it's encouraged as well.
Good question.
Within reason. Let's talk about within reason, but yeah.
Another super chat from Lewis. Thank you so much for the super chat, Lewis. He says, how do you become an ODF or WDFW officer?
Yeah, so talked about this a little while ago. If you go to our page, I can't talk about, so ODFW is through the Oregon State Police, and that's who enforces a lot of Oregon's or all of Oregon Fish and Wildlife's rules. Both of our agencies have web pages you can go to learn how to be a Fish and Wildlife officer in the state of Washington, or I guess I'll plug for Oregon State Police. They have a page too for recruiting. We're always looking for good people. On our web page, if you go to WDFW.𝗲𝗏.gov, and you go to the top about WDFW, you'll see something for WDFW Police, and in there you'll find how to become a WDFW enforcement officer. Has all the criteria for becoming an officer, minimum qualifications, whether you have college or other law enforcement, military. Feel free to look there. We are looking for a few good officers.
There you go. not only did he tell you how, you can go do one. Go be one. There you
right.
go.
Yeah, this one,
Yes.
I definitely want you to speak to this one because this has
right.
been a,
He's gonna be sweating at the end of this day. He's going
this
mile a minute right now.
This one is, I feel like some people are very confused on because especially like Oregon, Washington, every state has different laws with this, and Washington is pretty clear in the law as it pertains to people's properties. So
Yeah, so in this, so again, let's dispense with the lawyer talk. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just giving you what I know about this, not necessarily where a prosecutor or another enforcement agency might enforce something. The Washington State Department of Natural Resources owns some of the bedlands of rivers, and it has to do with navigability when the state was transferred from the federal government to the state at statehood. There's different interpretations of what that is. There's case law, Supreme Courts, and even I believe the Supreme Court, which way did that go? Superior and the Supreme Court, depending on the county or the state, have made some decisions on this. So no one river is the same as the next river next to it. One of the things I can say is there are Coast Guard navigable waters. So like the lower portion of the Owlets, the Columbia River is a navigable river, the lower portion of the Washougal, the Lewis, these all have these navigability determinations. And in those areas, an individual can be up to that line of navigation up to the ordinary high water line. So we're not talking about the flood line, we're talking about ordinary high. The problem is that some properties in the state of Washington were conveyed to the property owners before statehood through proclamations signed by either the Senate or I believe the President. And there's one up here on the North Fork Lewis River that's like that, where it's all navigable except for this big chunk that actually predates statehood, and so they own the entire bed. So it doesn't mean you can't float it, but you're not supposed to walk there. So there's no good
you
answer.
can't drop an anchor either.
You're not supposed to drop an anchor. That's right. So there's no good answer about this for any one river, and it really comes down to research. I know that we have some landowners on the Owlets that are above that line of navigability, where you can float it, but in one place I think there's a cable going across the river.
Yes, yeah.
So
There is.
there's a lot of this stuff. What I would ask people is don't go out and try to assert rights that you're not sure about. And a fish isn't worth getting into a confrontation with a landowner. Just let it go. If you think there was an issue, you can contact a law enforcement agency and go to the county assessor's office and see what information you can find. But there's just
And
no
just
simple
try to be
answer it.
respectful. We have a video
Yeah.
that I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen, and that scenario. We basically we weren't anchored at first, but then we hooked a fish, and it was probably the biggest fish that this guy had ever caught in his life. And no matter how many times I yelled at Jordan and told him we cannot go to the bank right here, this guy he's gonna lose his mind. Jordan was like, we're taking a picture of this fish. If the guy comes out and yells at us, we'll deal with it at that time. Well, we touched the bank, and didn't take more than 2 seconds. That guy was out on his deck like, get off my property. And so we respectfully said, do you mind if we take a picture really quick, or do you want us to leave right now? And he's like, I want you to leave right now. So we put the fish back in the net, we left it in the net, and we floated down to where we could get somewhere where we felt comfortable taking a picture. We took a picture and we left.
Yep.
So you just, and then I spent a lot of time actually talking to Cameron's Coast Guard buddies and talking to a lot of people trying to figure out if we were allowed to do anything on that river from a bank perspective. And I basically figured out you are not. These people own the river bottom, and you cannot touch their bank. And it was literally an island in the middle of the river that we were on. We weren't even on either side of the bank. We were on a gravel island in the middle of the river, but it didn't matter. He still owned it.
Yeah. And so the other thing I'd like all the viewers to know, here in the state of Washington, this is a trespass ticket. It's a criminal misdemeanor over, taking opportunity to walk across the bank of somebody's property. Really think about that, and is the risk worth the reward? And I would argue, no, it's not. If you don't know, just keep moving on until you are someplace where you have permission to be, or you know that it's open to the public. And some landowners are really good. They have no problem with people accessing the bank as long as they're not coming up on their property. There's other places that are definitely not like that.
I mean, the reality is too, is like anywhere that you invite the public to, guys, like a lot of people, you don't understand, like some of these landowners and guys that I know personally, have talked to a lot, like a lot of times too, it's not necessarily like the fishermen that have ruined kind of that defensiveness from the landowners. Like it's like swimmers and other people that have recreated on the river that haven't respected the property too, or fishermen before you. So you don't know, like, you might be a cool guy, you might be a nice guy, but the guy, the 5 anglers before you might not have been, and have had run-ins and have constant issues. So sometimes these landowners, You know, like I said,
Okay.
it's not worth it.
Yeah. So there's a comment on here about sea lions. Let's just talk about this honestly. Recreationally, if we watch somebody whack a sea lion, that's going to be going straight to the feds and to our partners at NOAA Office of Law Enforcement, and that becomes a federal issue at that point. Don't do that.
Come on.
Don't even think about it.
You guys, okay, as much as we all love our little flippered friends, let's not waste too much time tonight talking about it, because we all know
it's illegal.
that is not going to happen.
I've seen it a few times. There's like, all right, I'm just going to front this one right here. Let's move
that's
on.
fair.
Yep,
It's like,
yep.
I was ignoring that one. I'm like, come on, you guys. We know.
But I know it's
We
a question a
love 'em.
lot of
We
people
love
wonder
'em.
about. So,
We
you know,
love 'em.
okay, it's a what if. We talk
Yeah,
about
that. What if you're going to jail and paying a probably hefty fine too?
it. Yeah.
So let's just start from the top there. Is it okay to keep a fish hooked in the, what's that say? In the mouth, outside in. I don't really.
Flossing. Flossing legal. Guys
So-
drifting lines, trying to, for those that don't know what flossing is, definition, will be guys that will swing leaders, swing lines attached with whatever, and the hook will come outside the fish, whap, and go in.
All right, so right now, unless you're on a river where we have the rule that says it has to be hooked inside the mouth, it's not considered to be foul hooked if it's the gill plate forward. Now, the next part that comes into this is the observations that we're making, because fish have to voluntarily take the hook. So if somebody is flossing and we're seeing repeatedly foul hook or something to that manner, we'll probably contact somebody. Does it mean a ticket's going to be written? Maybe. Depends on the activity and what we observed.
And what you just said there too, the voluntary, because so just like twitching has, you know, like before twitching, it was bead fishing. Like bead fishing came out, and like you said, if the fish is voluntarily still taking the hook, and because the reality is like, I don't care what anybody says, like bead fishing for wild steel is the best thing that happened to wild steelhead. The reality is like, you're not going to be like, you know, throating a steelhead. You're not going to be hooking them in the tongue. A lot of times you do get that hook that's like outside in from a fish that's coming up and grabbing the bead, tightening the leader, and you're hooking them in areas that are going to honestly benefit the fish for when you're letting it go.
Yep. And so here's the other
But
thing.
it voluntarily, but that part of that, it voluntarily took the bead.
Right, and what did we see was going on before that? Oftentimes we're watching the very quick retrieve at the end of a drift. So every time you get to the end of the drift, somebody's ripping on the line, pulling it to the side, up over their head really fast. If that's happening every time and then we're seeing a fish hook like that, it's going to give us pause. If we don't see any of that and somebody lands a fish in that manner, that's a whole different issue. So again, this comes down to discretion and what we observed at the time. So just do what's right again.
Don't game the system.
Don't
guys.
game the system.
Don't
There we
game
go.
the system. These guys
I
know
like
what's
that.
up. These
That's right.
guys know what's up.
I've seen this question a few times. I already know what your answer is going to be, but
Yeah.
if you catch a native fish
The super
and it
chat.
dies, can you keep it?
No. No, you
just
cannot.
Throw
You
it
just let
back,
the thing
even
go and
though
let it
it's
float
legal
away.
or
You
not.
got to let it go. Yep, it's not lawful to possess that fish, even though you can't harvest a fish that's closed season. So even though the angling activity may have resulted in the death of the fish, you are not allowed to retain it. It is an impact. The fisheries managers know that some of that's happening. They build it into their models. We hate to see it happen, but the fact that we had a mortality doesn't give an individual the right or the ability to retain something that's unlawful to possess.
Yeah, and you guys can see where that
possess
could
it.
become problematic, right? You could, if they had any sort of sway in that rule, guys would just be like, oh, well, I gut hooked it, so I had to keep it. And then before you know, everyone's keeping every wild fish that they hook and just making up an excuse as to why they keep it. So I could see why that obviously wouldn't be okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and you guys realize like fish program is built like that little mortality rate of just even like released fish into all of our fisheries, to the point where like even on the Columbia River, when we have thousands and thousands of fish, if we can't harvest or basically kill like one more like of a wild tule, for instance, in certain areas, those areas shut down completely. Even though no one's going to be keeping, even though it's hatchery only and we're releasing all wilds, if we can't impact a wild fish one more time, then
They shut 'em down.
that's
That's
shut
happened to
down.
us before.
Even for all the hatchery fish, while we're not retaining wild fish. So that's all built into the system.
And thank you for the super chat, Kevin. Appreciate the question, man.
Awesome.
Yep. So I won't be at the Washington Sportsman shows, but I am typically at the Portland one, but I can guarantee you there's an officer or captain or sergeant just like me that'll be at one of the Washington ones. We try to attend all those and work with the public and answer these questions.
Always see you guys there.
Yep.
I have a bunch of questions. I thought it would be a good chance to talk about the app. I don't know if there's things you want to talk or share. People are asking to see boundary lines and update regs and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the state of Washington, we have the Fish Washington app right now, and it's going through an upgrade, and it's also going to incorporate, once everything gets rolled out, it's going to incorporate portions of the new electronic license when everything comes on board this next year. So there's going to be a lot of functionality in this. For anglers, it's going to have rules for all of our rivers, for our streams, especially the major ones. It should have the ability for you to look in there and get contact info. I believe there's going to be catch record card that's built into it, and all of your license information is going to be there as well. It is going to have a lot of functionality. Our developers in-house are trying to make this as useful for the public as possible. All of the officers have this on our work phones, and we use it extensively because we want to know what the public's seen. And a lot of the public is using this app now, or they have the pamphlet. It should be the same. So if we find a discrepancy between one or the other, we're always going to give the side of caution to the most liberal construing of that rule. So if the pamphlet says it's open and the app says it's closed, and there's not a good reason for the two to be different, we're going to take that into consideration in terms of what we're going to do. But it is geolocated, so you can just turn on your phone. It's best to turn it on before you start your fishing day to make sure it's updated, everybody. That's a key tip. Jeff's top tip right here. Make sure you've turned it on.
A lot of emergency rules and regulations flowing through.
That's right. So make sure those are all downloaded. Check the rules before you go. That's another great thing to do to make sure you're not going to be in any issues or get contacted saying you're in a place you shouldn't be because it's closed. And then you'll have all that information there ready even when you're in an offline mode. So it's getting better every day, and the new version that's coming out here before too long is going to make it even better.
Are you going to let, with the new app that's coming, obviously with the catch record card and stuff like that, are you going to let any anglers kind of, are they going to do a test run on it at all, where they just let like a subset of anglers or sportsmen use the app before they actually give it out to the full public?
The beta release, I think, is still being considered in terms of what it's going to look like, so I won't comment on that, but I would... there's a very strong chance of...
They really need to do that, unlike what they did with the guide logbooks.
I was saying that because I was just recommending it as like...
It's definitely in our thought process, yes. Yep.
For sure.
There's a couple other super chats here, Clint.
Because now people figured out they can do the super chats.
Yeah, we appreciate the super chats so much, guys. It really does help the channel. I don't know if you guys have seen, but we've been trying to upgrade the studio as much as we can, and that's where that super chat money goes, so thank you. He says, where is the boundary between an open marine area / river and a closed trib? Right now, I just dip my finger in the water and taste to see if it's salty.
Okay, that's not the case.
So typically where we have those boundary lines, they're
Yeah.
pretty well established in the regulations, especially around our marine areas, between like what is considered freshwater and what's saltwater, where one license will work and where one won't work. I could take, let me use one that's familiar to me, the 𝗛𝗚𝗥𝗗 River. It's the boat launch. The boat launch there at South Bend is the demarcation from what they consider 𝗛𝗚𝗥𝗗 Bay to the 𝗛𝗚𝗥𝗗 River. And it's established in the rules. There's an actual line that it talks about what that is. So I can't opine here about what river you might be thinking about, but most of those rules where that would be a consideration, those are hard and fast lines that are in our administrative code, and they are demarcated.
I mean, just going by the salty line, I mean, by that logic, you could just assume the Columbia River I think saltwater gets about 2 miles, but
Yeah,
there's on
exactly.
a big incoming tide. That's not a marine area. There is a boundary.
Yeah.
There is a cutoff.
So with that, to expand on that, you said most of the time you see, and you're not going to be able to answer this, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Okay, let's try it. Let's try it.
Here we go.
Most of
Here
the
we go.
time,
All right, here we
there's
go.
you said it. It's a hard, fast line. Is there a reason why the dead line on the Columbia River, that's called the dead zone, doesn't have a hard, fast line? Why does it have a diagonal line that's extremely hard for anglers to understand?
That's a great question. I can't answer it.
I knew it.
And don't worry about that, because when they did the saturation out there, I was boarded by one of your officers at an OSP boat with another ODFW employee, and I'm like, and they were down doing loops, and because the Warrior Rock line doesn't really contain the Warrior Rock, it does on a big L, and I'm like, would you guys just make it the green buoy? And your guys, talk to this guy. Anyways, we definitely need to get that changed.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely green buoy to Warrior Rock.
Yeah.
But no, we get it.
So the other thing too is if you're wondering where those lines are, the Fish Washington app specifically, it has those lines in it for you. So all those lines are there. You can look right at it and see what catch zone you're in, what river you're in, and where the agency says those lines are to keep you out of trouble and keep you in compliance.
Okay, now this coyote question.
What is that?
Have you heard of Jerry, the Tacoma coyote, missing his upper jaw? I saw WDFW in North Tacoma and assumed they were looking for him.
I have not.
I mean, you'd handle like any kind of like injured or distressed wildlife issue. I would imagine that'd be kind
Yeah,
of...
so we can, and we also have wildlife conflict specialists that work out of the wildlife program. They're actually on our records management system. We're all dispatched out of the same system, so we see that information. I have not heard of Jerry.
That's not his region though, too,
yes,
guys.
yeah,
Tacoma would be region 2 or something. Yeah.
That's region 6.
Region 6.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm not aware of him, but yes, if our officers could have been there looking for Jerry, or they could have been there for any number of other reasons.
Thanks for the feedback, James. We
we'll
will
find
definitely talk to Jeff and see if we can make this a more regular occurrence and get him in here a couple more times. This has been an amazing live feed, and I'm glad it's helping all you guys, and hopefully it helps you guys not make any mistakes. You know?
That's right.
Okay, Clint, what else you got favorited? We get all the super chats handled?
This one.
All right, so I see, does a game warden cover all game, or is there wardens that focus on big game, et cetera? So we are Fish and Wildlife here in the state. There are other states where they have a fisheries commission, and they have fisheries officers, and they have a wildlife commission, they have wildlife officers. Here in the state of Washington, in fact, pretty much all of the West Coast and the Western U.S., we are integrated agencies, we cover it all. So. Which is part of the great part of this job, because one day we could be working the 𝗛𝗘𝗟𝗣 River working salmon anglers, the next day we're up dealing with deer, and then maybe we're up at Mount St. Helens dealing with something else the next.
Yeah.
If it's just kind of where the wind blows.
Just like you said, when you turn out of your driveway, you can go left or right.
Yep, that's right.
That's a good question. Can you drink beer while you're trolling a boat?
Yes, absolutely you can. It comes down to, are you intoxicated while operating that boat? And so Washington State, in fact, all of the states have boating under the influence laws. It's very similar to what DUI looks like. It can result in some very stiff civil fines and criminal penalties if you're found to have committed that violation. We make a big push on that with Seafair up at Lake Washington. We have a number of officers from King County State Patrol, our agency, Mercer Island, and they go out and do saturation patrols looking specifically for BUI. And we actually have very specific training and highly capable officers that work that, because it takes a lot of practice and skill to be able to identify it and then work through all the testing.
But it's not like a car where there would be like an open container law or something like that.
No, there's not. Yeah, it's not open container like it would be on a state highway. It's drink responsibly and don't drink too much.
Perfect.
Yep.
So not
like
to
that.
add to it, but it kept coming up as well. What about people smoking weed if it's legal in the state while fishing?
All right, so if you are in an open area where the public can see it, you cannot consume cannabis in the state of Washington. So it doesn't matter if it's in your car, if you're on a park bench, if the public can see it, it's a violation. The marijuana could be confiscated. And you could be cited for that.
Interesting.
So a guy can't be under his top of his boat. It'd be kind of considered the same thing.
I mean, it's concealed.
So
if
you
They
were
said in a car, though. I mean, like in a car.
So it's open.
Yeah.
So it has to be visible to the public. So
Okay.
if you're in an area where the public can't see it, let's say your house. Okay, you're not going to have that happen in your own house. The windows are closed. The public can't see it. But if you're smoking while you're driving down the road, now you have a DUI problem.
Yep.
You also have this open to the public, open view. So there's an issue there. If you're on a boat, it's no different. You still could be, I'd have to go back and look at how the law reads, but there could be some type of boating under the influence for that. In fact, I know there is. So.
Oh, for sure,
Yeah.
I guarantee. I would just highly recommend don't smoke
Yeah.
marijuana.
And good question too. But as of note too, like if you're with a guide or with anything like that, it is actually not legal in any boats, concealed or not. Like we're federally licensed, and there is still no narcotics in a boat.
Makes sense.
Like if you're
Yes.
going with a guide or if you are a guide.
Yeah, because
if
of the
you
Coast-
are a guide.
Because of the Coast Guard license.
Yeah.
That's right.
Hear about that a lot.
Yeah. All right, so I said I wasn't going to bring this up, but there is the biggest bust thing on there. There's that question. So I will simply say,
Okay, wait. So are we talking about what Evan said here?
Yep.
Biggest bust or just wild story, funniest thing you
Yep.
heard, basically the most
so
memorable
there's
day of
too
work?
many to list them all. This job has been a lot of fun. I've had some really scary moments. I've had a gun go off in my face in the field during a hunting season. I've been hit by a car from somebody that's fleeing. This stuff happens, and it usually happens at the worst possible time. So, I mean, Murphy strikes. So now that I have a family, I've got kids, I want to watch them grow up. I've definitely, I think twice before jumping nowadays. when I'm out in the field, especially as a captain now. I recognize my skills are not as well honed as they used to, and so when I'm out with my officers, we talk about safety quite a lot. But the biggest bust I had, I'll just say this: I did get somebody that had 2 hot bald eagles in the back of their car. And this was not the first time this individual had been
killed bald eagles?
Had killed bald eagles. And in fact, when I caught this individual was driving a car that we had already seized once and he had bought back. And now I seized it again and he never got to get it back. So that was pretty amazing. And
So
it all
he's a
started
repeat bald eagle offender.
repeat bald eagle offender. And what got this person was it was a cold day. And he was in the area, and I was in the area specifically looking for an individual doing this because we were starting to see dead deer on the side hill. And then what they were doing is using these deer as bait to draw in eagles, and then they were shooting the eagles.
So they're shooting
What
the
are
deer.
they doing with the eagles?
There's a large component of trafficking that goes around certain endangered and threatened species, and this was all about trafficking. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But what happened was that one of these eagles had dropped a drop of blood on the back of the car, and I knew this driver was suspended. So I saw him driving down the road. We got into I wouldn't call it a chase, but he ducked down somebody's driveway into private property and caught him coming around. And I jumped out and I said, "Hey, I know you're suspended. Stop." And he got out. And when I got up to the car, there was a single drop of blood near the trunk on top of all the grit and grime. It was like 30 degrees and frozen outside. And here's this beautiful drop of red blood. And I'm like, "What's in the trunk?" "I don't want to tell you." And so eventually we got there and he opened the trunk and here's these 2 eagles, and one of them was like 99 degrees. And then the person said, "Oh yeah, we found him. We saw him yesterday and came back and got him today." And it was below freezing. I was like, "Yeah, that math doesn't work out quite right." So that was one of the cases I was pretty proud of for my career.
That is just un-American.
There's a ton of them. A lot of general authority work that we've done that just lead to really crazy stories. Here recently, we had an individual that ran from me after a contact up on a local river here, and jumped in the river and swam away as far as we're concerned because we couldn't find him that night. And then he got found a couple days later. And so that's kind of stuff just happens. And you never know when it's going to happen, and it's usually when you least expect it. And again, that whole thing about my skills are not as honed nowadays, being I'm not in the field as much. I was eating a little crow on that one. So.
His math wasn't mathing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Hey, Kyle, thank you
Yeah.
so much for the super chat. We're actually not going to touch on that subject. We will bring it up in some future live feeds. I think
Yep.
Cameron's working
Yep.
on some future
Yep.
guests to bring in here and talk about the Washington Coastal Steelhead, but
It's
Jeff
developing
doesn't really
story.
have anything to do with that, and he doesn't make decisions on that, so we're not going to bring it up.
Yeah, that story is developing. They had the first town hall. I'm sure you heard it, and all the jazz.
But we will be talking about it, I promise you, probably in the next live feed.
You want me to hit that one that's there real quick?
If you can.
Yes, so yes, the new app, you will be able to tag big game and waterfowl. The specifics of that are still being exactly worked out, but yes, that's the intention. That's what we want to do.
Cool. What's
Garrett.
better?
Could be an interesting one.
Which one?
Yeah, I don't know if they would be allowed to do that.
So if you all want to know, so yes, I was on that show that we had a number
Instead
of
of
years ago,
sorting-
Rugged Justice.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
was on there. I did have the video crew follow me around. And the fact was, I don't think I was funny enough to be on there very much. I did have one episode where we ran into a guy who had poached a deer, and he came out of his house with nothing but a very tiny pair of shorts on and no other clothes, and lied to us the whole time. So
that one
and
made
that one made it on there because eventually he confessed, and I went in and got the firearms and all the stuff out of the house, and it worked out pretty good. But I don't think you'd want to follow me around with a camera nowadays because most of my time is spent on Teams, on Zoom, looking at legal research, or on the phone, or driving. So, but I've got officers.
I was gonna say we can pair that. We can figure that out. We'll figure
Yeah.
out.
That would
We'll
be
figure
cool.
out
Are
the skin
game
that
wardens
cat.
allowed to go fishing with us? It'd be fun to get some of you into our boats and take them out and show them what we do. That's from Jared
That's
from
from
Yakima
Yakima
Bay.
Bay.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with us doing that. The whole thing comes down to kind of a conflict of interest. So if we're on the job and we're having a service given to us like that, it becomes a little bit weird for us. So if it's something we definitely like to be engaged with industry and see what's going on the water. And so there's opportunities for that. It just has to be planned out and make sure we're not crossing any lines. So I won't say no, but I can't say 100% yes either.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had two great questions here, and go through, yeah. It wasn't. I don't want to touch the guide one, like guiding illegal.
I mean, Tom, I'm sure
guide illegally.
it's one of those scenarios, Tom. I can probably answer that for Jeff. I mean, at the end of the day, you live in the United States. If you don't want to say anything, just stay silent and don't say anything, right?
Which question are we looking
He's
at?
asking, when I'm interviewed by a wildlife officer, do I have the right to remain silent after identifying myself by presenting my license?
All right, so just to go over that one, there are requirements of what an individual has to produce for inspection. If a person doesn't do that, there is a different charge that's called fail to submit, catch, harvest, or other items for inspection. We call it fail to submit. So if an individual doesn't comply with our request after we see them engaged in hunting or fishing activities that we can articulate they were involved in, then they have violated that inspection rule, they violated a state law. Now where we go from that is a different deal. If a person doesn't want to talk to us and they just want to present their ID and their licenses to us, there's no way we can force that conversation, because it is something where if there was a violation, it could turn into a Miranda situation where Miranda needs to be advised. And obviously, if you watch Cops or anything else, you know that you have the right to remain silent. That's not typically where most of our contacts go. And then when we get to the issue, that's for on the criminal side. But if we're dealing with infraction level violations, it gets a little different, because those same protections aren't necessarily there, but we still try to value people's rights and not push the situation. But if somebody wants to not communicate, not give us the information we need to do our job, then it can start to become a problem.
Becomes a little more of a serious contact.
It becomes a little bit more of a conversation at that point, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And actually, that reminded me of the question, and kind of what we talked about a little bit in life. I wanted to kind of go back, because I'm just going to say river names. I'm going to say some areas, like the Cedar Creek area and the snagging. You said there's been some some. I don't know how to say, like some functional changes of like how you guys are going out and like approaching like those situations. Basically, because this was probably the second most thing that was brought up on one of the posts that we had. It involved like kind of repeat snagging areas, if you will, and like how you guys are approaching that, and then you're actually doing it a little bit differently now.
Well, I'll elaborate on that a little bit, because I think us as the general public, and I've thought this for years, and I've even said this to myself, is like, I'll walk down there and I'll be like, why the hell aren't the game wardens down here writing tickets? It's like I can go down here every day and watch 100 guys snagging, and I've always just been so curious, because I do see you guys down there, and I have over the years, but listening to you in the podcast really gave me some good clarity around that. So I'm excited for all these people to kind of see and hear what's going on there.
Yeah, so a couple things have changed. So a number of years ago, all of our violations used to be criminal misdemeanors for fishing violations. We lost something that was called bail forfeiture, which, if not trying to call anybody out here, but if anybody did receive a ticket prior to 2013 and it wasn't for a barbed hook, it was probably a criminal ticket. It required people to go to jail. Some things happened at the state level. They decided bail forfeiture, i.e. just mailing in your check and pretty much saying I committed the crime, violated due process. So they pulled that back and said, all right, now anybody who gets a misdemeanor ticket has to go into court. They have to go in, they have to appear before a judge, and they have to be advised of their rights of what this misdemeanor ticket could mean. Well, being all of our tickets were misdemeanors at that point, we had to adapt. So we created some infractions, but it was all for non-possession type violations. So as soon as somebody possessed a fish, we had to go back to the criminal ticket again. Now that the courts were being overworked with all these appearances being required, our stuff was just falling off the table. So in 2019, I worked on a project with our agency, and we eventually got it in front of the legislature in 2020. It was approved, which increased our infractions, so that now we could go out. We had a lower threshold of proof that we had to prove for low-level fish and wildlife violations. It included possession of fish, shellfish, and small game. This doesn't apply to big game at this point or commercial violations. So now we have the ability to go out, and instead of having to work through a whole case report that would pass the criminal process in terms of beyond a reasonable doubt, now we can write 1 or 2 paragraphs about what we saw, just like you would a traffic ticket, and move forward on your case. It also keeps those levels of violations a lot lower, so people aren't losing the ability to get a job because they have a misdemeanor. All this means when we go out to the North Fork of the Lewis now post-COVID, we've been a lot more engaged
Right to
there.
it.
That's right. The North, we're going to talk about Cedar Creek. Where we're looking for violations that are happening. So there is kind of this balance of, do we go out and contact everybody and do a bunch of license checks, or do we sit back and watch what's going on before we go out and contact individuals? So we do a little bit of both. We don't want there to be a pattern to it. So we do both, but we do spend a lot of time watching people. And so what we're watching for are, is somebody snagging? Is somebody keeping foul hooked fish? Are they hiding fish? Is stuff going back to their car? All this different stuff. What gear are they using? Oh, this person has nothing but a lead wrapped around a treble hook type stuff, right? We can address most of that with infractions now. So our ticket numbers statewide this year are almost double what they were last year. I just ran the numbers for the chief this morning on another issue and was looking at that. And so that engagement post-COVID where the public is out, we're out, we've been kind of unleashed from all of our protocols about contacting the public. We are engaging a lot more. And on top of this, we had some really low officer numbers for a while. We are getting more officers in the field. Our recruitment efforts are working, but remember, I still want more. And yep, shameless plug right there. At the end of the day, we are trying to use the deterrent value of some of those tickets when we're seeing obvious violations in front of us. We want everybody to see that to try to deter some of this blatant behavior that we've seen at some of our trouble spots. Cedar Creek is one of those. It feels like it doesn't matter when we go there or how many officers we throw at it. It can be really problematic at times, and we just go down and we write tickets, and as soon as we leave, there's a new crew in there. And that particular area is closed at night. And there's times we'll go in there and we'll clean it out and everybody's gone, and we'll have a new crew that comes in after hours and they're in there fishing when it's closed, and they have to know that we were there. And yet it's just happening. So trying to stop some of that bad behavior is part of what we're doing now through increased compliance and issuing of tickets. But
Well, I mean, that's good because basically the long, not to even simplify anything what you just said, but the reality was plugging up the court systems and stuff like that. Like you said, stuff was falling off, and now it's like they're, like you said, twice as many tickets. They're dropping the hammer as they should if you're play stupid games.
Yeah, and so but the thing is, with an infraction, a person can just pay it, or it's a much simpler process if you want to go and talk to a judge. If you want to say, yeah, this is why I did it, or I did it, but those options are there, and it's a lot less formalized than it would be with a criminal proceeding. That being said, if it does rise to the level of a criminal violation, somebody's kept a wild fish, we feel that we have removed a lot of the low-level violations from the court system. So when we bring something to a prosecutor, to the court, we can talk about why it's important and why we brought it to them, and it's not a waste of their time to be looking at it. So, and we save those tickets really for the worst of it.
The special ones.
Yeah. Yep.
The special
I saw another great question.
This has been one of the best live feeds ever. I'd agree. This is a good one, guys. And good questions, too.
Yeah, this has been awesome.
Chef's probably sweating here.
Fillet fish.
It's hot with all this body armor and stuff on, but it's all good.
Can you fillet fish out on the water?
So yes, a person can fillet fish, but you have to hold on to proof of compliance with size, sex, weight, hatchery, or wild restrictions until you're ashore and finished fishing for the day.
Yeah. So what we've done in the past, I'm sure you guys have seen in videos, when we want to do catch and cooks or whatever, usually we'll fillet a piece of it off and we'll retain the whole carcass. And as long as you got the carcass and you can prove it, you're good.
And I even went so far as to call this man when we did the Springer episode when we brought Field to Plate up from California, and I'm like, I'm gonna knock one side off. He's like, just make sure you keep the carcasses. It's all good. I'm like, okay, you might get a call on this because I don't want you to get calls, but just this is what we're doing, and it was a good episode.
And one thing we
Good
see
fish,
happen
too.
is, let's take Drano Lake for example. You can get plugged up waiting to get out there. So a lot of people will fillet their fish and then take their boat out. Well, they're chucking the carcasses before they get off the water, and sometimes we're checking boats when they get into the parking lot because it's so busy. Where's the carcass? I threw it over. That's a tough situation for the angler and for us because we want to be able to trust the recreating public. We want to, but there's also this other piece where you haven't complied with the rule because this thing is filleted before you brought it
You're
off.
talking say a guide goes, parks his boat on the shore, I'll just say at Drano Lake, fillet the fish, throw the carcasses over, send the fillets up with the clients.
That's a different thing. I'm talking
Fish
about,
has been landed.
I'm talking about everybody's with the boat. It's a family group,
Mm-hmm.
and you see the boat come in and get on the trailer, and you contact
Before it even had a touch for
like maybe
anybody,
and here you've got these fillets with nothing else, and you know that a lot of people are doing this. That's just a hard one. So I would ask, and maybe rightfully so, some places you don't want to throw all the carcasses right on the bank. You want to deep six them. That gets to be a tough one at times, and it's one of those regulatory pieces that we're still struggling over of how to best deal with that. So use common sense and Yeah.
And if you are one of those guys that lands on the bank and does fillet your carcasses, take your carcasses off the shore.
Yes, please. And away from the boat ramp where
Away
everybody's
from the
having
boat
to
ramp
drive
so
on
no one
them.
has to smell it.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Oh geez.
Which one?
Do you have to communicate with fish checkers when they're asking you something on the water?
Yes.
Is it legal?
Yeah, so there are requirements and authorities that our fish checkers have. They do have the
It's a
authority
first
to.
sentence of your license where you have to forfeit any
It
like
is, but
parts
there's actually authorities that are in the RCW talking about sampling of fish and wildlife. So there are certain things, biological samples, them looking for coded wire tags, transmitters, things like that. They do have that authority. Now, if you deny them, that's where we come in, and it comes into a possibly, what is the violation? Interrupting a department activity type thing. So I can't remember what the name of it is, but there's that, or failing to submit. Because sometimes when they say, no, I'm not going to let you, and no, I have nothing, and we get there, sometimes they give us the same line and we'll find fish. So again, our staff, a lot of our creelers, a lot of our samplers, they're young individuals that are just out of college or going through college. They're just doing a job because they like it. The last thing I would want to see happen is somebody treat them poorly, because they really are just trying to do their jobs, and we are just talking about fish. So please just comply with our samplers, comply with our officers if we're asking these questions. Do the right thing. Just be honest with us. I can tell you it's going to go better than if we have to go down the 20 questions game.
the special conversation.
Yep.
Oh boy.
At what point does a kayak need a license?
If a kayak had a gas motor on a Coast Guard navigable water, it would be required to have a registration on it. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly what I'm talking about.
but
So like my autopilot Minn Kota that I have, which is a 12.5-foot kayak, it has a Minn Kota electric trolling motor built into it. If I'm out on the Columbia River, I do not have to have that thing licensed, because I understood that I did, and I actually got it licensed, and I put registration.
No, I guess
numbers on
that's what
it.
I'm saying, is that out there you would be
On
required.
a navigable.
Yeah, and I even think electric motors are required to have. So this is the part where I can't remember how all the language with the Coast Guard goes for what's required on navigable waters. But if you were on a lake in the state of Washington and you had your kayak with an electric trolling motor on it, you're not required to be registered.
That's what I thought. It has to be like over a certain.
Yeah, it's over
horse.
9.9 horsepower or in navigable waters.
So there you go, guys.
Or over a certain length with a gas motor on it. Yep.
Can you talk about how ordinary anglers can help when people are snagging or illegally fishing, or honestly doing any sort of illegal game infraction that they might want to report to you?
Yeah, so what I don't want people to do is go out and try to take action and clean up the mess by themselves, because there's a number of individuals that are doing this that just may not have the best ethics in terms of how they interact with the public. So if you see this, we have a reporting line. We have Wildcom. There's a phone number. Maybe I don't think I have it with here.
Clint, can you find that
It's
number?
360-902-2936, extension 1. So if you press 1, 360-902-2936, that will get you to Wildcom. Our dispatch center is open, I believe, from 7 in the morning until 5 at night. We're working on extending hours. It's open 7 days a week. If you leave a message with what you saw outside of those hours, they'll get it. If you see an in-progress violation of something that's substantial, call 911. Don't be the hero. Don't go out and try to get information or anything for us. Get as much information as you can. A license plate number goes a long way. Descriptions of who was there, a color of a vehicle, what you saw. Call 911 if it's like big game poaching in progress. If you see somebody with a gill net in the river, somebody fishing a closed stream and keeping wild fish, or keeping any fish for that matter, especially salmon, steelhead, sturgeon, call that in either to Wildcom or call 911 and report it. And if it's important enough, 911, they can get through to us or State Patrol, and they'll rouse us out of bed and we'll go. So yeah, just get the information, do some documentation. A picture is great as well, if you can take a picture from afar.
Cool.
So, but yeah, don't go up and try to solve it yourself or get information to help us, because we have examples of where that hasn't gone well. So I want to keep everybody out there safe.
That's a good question. If you hook a fish above the Warrior Rock line and you floated below it, once you land the fish, is that still considered a legal fish?
And so that would be legal. So as long as you're allowed to transit through an area that is closed to the retention of what you have on board, as long as you don't stop and fish again. So an example would be you get a salmon above Warrior Rock, it's lawful. You record it on your catch record card. And you're like, you know what, it's a great day. I want to go do catch and release sturgeon down below. So you go downstream and you've got this fish that you have retained, but retention isn't open in that area. we would consider that to be a closed season fish and you're in possession in a closed area, and we almost always take action on that because we can't prove where it came from.
So you hook one on the line, tide's barreling out. And because that was the second part of the question, is that you hook one on the line, so you've made your turn. And this could apply to lots of river mouths. I mean,
He said it was legal.
But then float while
Yeah.
fighting the fish.
He said it was legal.
You float
So,
down
but if
river.
you're still
But
fighting,
if you continue to, if you're still fighting,
yeah, that.
That's yeah.
Because
Because you were talking about the transfer law, which is
Yeah,
but
so if you're fishing in an area that's right on the line and you float into an area where you're still fighting the fish, try to get back into that open area quick. So, because technically if we saw somebody fighting a fish out there,
I mean,
and
there's
that's
hard for you
that
to
was
tell
like our
whether it was
first
hooked there or
viewpoint
not.
of
right,
that
guy
first-
comes
yeah.
barreling, you guys come out, and then there's a boat
That
fighting a
makes
fish
sense.
that hooked it, or well, you don't know where he hooked it, but you're right,
Right.
he's below
And
the
so,
line.
yeah,
he's
but
below
that's
the
one thing.
line.
A lot of people have GPS and plotters on their boats now. You can see track lines. You can see where stuff happened. It's the conversation. It's being open and honest. But sometimes things just happen. I understand. What I always ask people is give yourself a little buffer, because if we're fishing right up to that line, Drano Lake boat boundary is a perfect example of people pushing that line, and either they get pushed into the closed area that's bank only, or they're intentionally going out there to get away from everybody else. It just causes all kinds of problems.
No, I mean I'm
Yeah.
horrible at that. I like, especially at Warrior, because I mean anyone you see fishing there, like it's almost like clockwork. You get
Well, I
to
remember-
that
I
line and
remember-
it's like fish.
I remember my last interaction with the forest officer. Was like, I killed my last fish, and I was just floating out. I was like putting rods away, making sure everything was like good in the boat, and I was about 100 yards down below. I mean, it wasn't fishing, but same thing. Boat came right out to me, and I'm like, he's gonna talk to me, and I already know what he's gonna ask. And no, we were not fishing down here. We caught the last fish up there, but we were just getting ready to traverse in. We weren't fishing, but he didn't know that. And sure enough, came right to the boat. Asked, he's like, what's going on, guys? Right. I'm like, we just killed our last one. We're just wrapping it up. We were not fishing below the boundary, so we're good. He's like, oh, okay, and he went off. So, but he didn't know that right
Yeah.
away until he questioned us.
Yep.
So, yeah. Let's do this. I'm gonna ask. Maybe we can go like another question or two, because we've been grilling.
Yeah, it's
we've been
already
grilling
18
Jeff
a.m.
for a long time here. But I do want to ask, what can the public do to make your job easier? Besides, like, I guess maybe that's just it too. Like when you make those contacts, being forthful or being forthright, being truthful, talking to them, talking it through, not
Yeah.
lying to you guys. But is there anything else like people can do other than know the rules and know the regs? I mean, is there something?
Yeah, just be honest about what's going on. The worst thing that could happen is when we go out on a contact and somebody's concerned they did something wrong. Let's just take the lowest. Let's take the lowest opportunity here. Somebody thinks they did something wrong, but they're not sure, and so they start lying about what they're doing. That's the worst case scenario, because oftentimes rules are so wide open at times they probably weren't doing anything wrong, but now they've backed themselves into a corner. So if we kind of use that as a scaffold to move up, just being honest with us, being honest with any of our law enforcement officers, doesn't matter if it's Fish and Wildlife, if it's Washington State Patrol, county deputies, city officers, park rangers, DNR, just be honest. That's going to help the situation the most. And most of the times, honest mistakes are honest mistakes. We can work through those. What we can't easily work through is when people compound a lie and it becomes a real problem. And we get to the point of maybe needing to do a search warrant or having to start issuing people rights because we now have probable cause that, or at least reasonable suspicion that other criminal activity is going on. Let's not even take a shovel and bury ourselves in that hole. Just be upfront right from the beginning. Talk to us. Just be real about it. We want to be real with you.
Man, I'm seeing tons
And
of
I
comments.
can attest to that on a lot of scenarios. I mean, I can remember a day, I mean, this has been 10 years now, but I was fishing on the North Fork, and I was fishing down there, and I think it might have been Isabel or someone that came down. They were like, let me see your license. And I pull out my wallet, and I'm like, oh, shit. I didn't have my license. And I immediately was like, I am so sorry. I just was like admitted to it. I'm like, I do not have my license. She's like, no biggie. She's like, reel your stuff up right now and leave. Go get your license. And she was really cool about it. I was honest with her, and she let me leave, and I went and got my license.
But-
so I'm sure in scenarios you guys may ticket someone, but at the end of the day, I feel like you're 100% right. In any scenario, just being honest is the right way to go.
So one thing I'll say that's typically always going to result in a ticket of some kind is when you have an individual that's fishing and they have a salmon, a steelhead, a sturgeon, halibut, and they have no license with them.
When they were
That's a
supposed-
ticket because
yeah.
you are supposed to have it on a catch record card.
you're done.
Now there's different ways we can deal with it, but even if you're engaged in that activity and you don't have the license or you don't have your catch record card, the first question is, okay, so you're out here fishing, but you don't have your catch card. What are you going to do if you catch a fish? we're typically issuing an infraction on that when we find it. Not always, but it depends on the situation and whether people were open and honest and have that conversation. But
how I got
that-
She
but that-
visibly could tell, I think, in my face. And I mean, I'm like rifling through everything. I'm like, I have my license, I promise. And like, she could tell that I was like, damn it, I don't have it.
But on the flip side of that, I jumped in with a buddy's boat. I threw my truck up on the sand at Austin's and ran out and went springer fishing. This is back when I was like 18. I was actually working for the department at the time. And was out there trolling. Like 30 minutes later, OSP came up, license check. Oh yeah, cool, no problem. Oh no, my license. I'm like, I can see it. It's in my little red Toyota sitting there on the beach. Nope, $62 ticket. So
Yeah.
doesn't
It
happen
happens.
all the time.
In one of those scenarios where, just like
Yep.
we all said,
Yep.
we've all made little mistakes over the years, and you know, you hope that you learn from them, you don't make them again.
Well, and the fact is that sometimes, even with a mistake, there's going to be accountability that you're held to. And sometimes that's a ticket, sometimes it's a written warning. But in terms of our management, especially with fish, there's federal rules and agreements with the tribes that we have to be holding to, and some of that comes from catch record card data. It comes from in-season management. That stuff's really important, and if people aren't complying with those basic catch accounting rules and making sure they're documenting what they harvest or complying with officers, complying with the creel staff, it can really cause problems. And so we take that seriously, and those typically will result in a ticket if we find them.
What about on like free fishing weekend? How do guys like? How does that work?
So on free fishing weekend, I think they're starting to change the way they deal with that. With if you're fishing for a species that requires a catch card, I think this year they actually said you had to have a license, even though it was free. I'd have to go back and see how that
Yeah, I
worked,
just was
what they
curious.
did, but if a license isn't required, you still have to have a catch record card to be complying with all the agency rules.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. I think. Do we have any more super chats? Just real quick.
I think we got to all of them.
Just wanted to make sure. We saw one. Miles, thanks for the super chat. There wasn't a question. We already talked to Steelhead. Yeah, I think we are good in that department. Okay, guys. We're gonna let Captain Wickersham here go tonight. Is there anything else? Anything else you want to say? We appreciate it. I can tell you, like, from the response that I'm seeing in the comments, we've had over 700 you guys watching live all night tonight. We appreciate you guys sticking
So
with
I
it.
know what you have to
Hopefully
do. Don't you have to give this thing away?
That's
Yeah,
right.
oh, yeah.
No, he's
Yeah.
walking over here for a good prize pack
all
too.
right.
Got to give you guys, got to hook you guys up. Yeah, I think this is definitely, if Mr. Wickersham would love to come back, get him back in here at another time, another venture. Maybe somebody from Oregon. We do try to plan on bringing in some of the fish program entities. We've had them in before. We've had Ryan and Quentin tuning in.
Oh, good.
And talking some of the salmon stuff on the Columbia before. But yeah, obviously a really good conversation and really good stuff. Can't do that. Thank you.
I just want to add to everybody, just keep it real out there, be safe. What I tell my officers when we go out and we work any of our seasons, this is fish and wildlife. It's not worth getting in a fight over. It's not worth getting in a big altercation. And really, just follow the rules with it. So just go out there, be real, and make sure you have fun and try to get your families involved. We've definitely seen a marked decrease in young people engaged in outdoor activities. So be good stewards, be good ambassadors. Let's show people how to do this right so that this can be something everybody enjoys going in the future.
And you guys heard it right there, direct
We
from
need
his
it.
mouth. We have seen a decrease in young people, hence why we continue to just build this addicted fishing brand, and we love all the community of followers that we built. We just want to keep getting people excited about fishing and excited to get out there in the outdoors, and hopefully this sport just lasts for generations to come. So we appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. We're going to give some North Fork lures away, and I'm going to add this real good prize pack. We're going to do a short bus flasher spinner, some addicted worms, a short bus flasher, and a fillet away mat. So all you people that have been here commenting, hanging out with us this entire night, you got a chance to win this. So who's it going to be, Clint?
But before, just realize we're going to be giving out a lot of other cool giveaways and stuff at the Bash at Sportco tomorrow from 6 to 9 p.m. Very interesting. Getting the other perspective, said Aaron Sullivan. And congratulations, Aaron Sullivan. You won the prize pack. If you email your address and what you won the end of the podcast.
Yep.
You won so much stuff there.
Just say the North
Yeah.
Fork Lures pack.
North Fork Lures pack.
Make sure you include your
with Officer
name,
Wickersham.
your address, and let us know exactly what you want, and then Colt and the guys at the shop will be able to get it out to you. And just like Cam said, don't forget, 6 to 9 p.m. tomorrow in Fife, Washington at Sportco. It's going to be an amazing event. Get there. It's going to be packed. Can't wait to meet all you guys. Any other last minute?
No, special thanks again for putting up with
Yeah,
the grilling.
appreciate
Great
you
questions
coming in, man.
tonight,
I had
guys.
fun, thanks.
That was
Yeah.
a great conversation, and we'll do it again.
And go apply, guys. It sounds
there
like
you go.
there's some opportunity there. Go see if you can be a game warden.
Awesome. Have a good night, guys. See ya.